Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about selectiveness as a software developer. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, do you find that software engineers are very selective when it comes to applying to companies? No. Well, it depends on the profile. Usually the times that I find that software developers are selective is when they're being headhunted, which is a different thing from applying to something. Because when you're applying to something, it's usually you are coming to the company looking for a job. But the headhunted software developers, they are usually the ones that have so much raw talent and the networks and so forth that they don't have to look for jobs. They get offered positions through other people. So the let's talk a little bit about the profile as well, because I think that matters a lot. The people who are usually very selective where they work are mid-levels at the very least, and seniors. Juniors, not so much. Junior level developers are usually just trying to find a foothold within IT. Like they're literally trying to get any job because that is going to be a challenge for them. Because as I like to say, software development or IT is a big club, and unless you have a few years of work experience and you can kind of talk the talk and walk the walk a little bit, you're not in the club. And nobody's going to want, usually very few companies want to offer you a chance to get into the club because they want you to be trained already before they let you in, or like before they take a chance on you. So the juniors are usually just trying to get any job. The thing that I find that most juniors are looking for, which is it's incidentally the tips that I've given to my employers when it comes to recruitment and stuff like that, is that if you're going to recruit juniors and you want to get juniors and like good juniors excited about your company and so forth, the thing that you should do is that you should pick up your most socially gifted senior software developers who still have fire in their eyes and their care, like they are truly passionate about their craft, and put them in the interview, like immediately with the candidate, because juniors resonate usually with a space of work where they feel that this is going to be an environment where they have really good coworkers who really know their stuff and who make them feel like, yeah, they're sort of friendly and they seem nice and they seem like the sort of people that I could like learn something from and so forth. These sorts of people, if you can present those to a junior, they will almost always want to work with you, because in their current situation, where they are at that point in their career, they're trying to get more knowledge, if that makes sense. They're usually looking to solidify their understanding of software development and sort of get from, oh, I don't know anything, to feeling to more towards like feeling like, yeah, I sort of know this stuff. Like they're just starting out, and the focus is usually for them to just get a sensation of, how do I do this for real now? How do I take this stuff that I learned in school or by myself or like on the boot camps or whatever and make a career out of that thing? And in order for them to be able to do that, they need a place of work where they feel like, yeah, this seems like a the focus is not so much on what the company is all about. The focus is on the environment of work that they're going to do. And a lot of juniors, like they will just pick the first thing that they get, or like they will pick anything, because, as I said, the fear and problems of getting your first job is usually overwhelming for a lot of people. So they will jump at the first opportunity, which is not a bad idea by any means, because, as I said, you can never really know how well a company is going to work out until you try it. So that's what I find, at least for the juniors. When it comes to mid-levels and seniors, and in terms of being selective and so forth, more comes down to timing as well, because that's the thing. If you're applying to jobs, you think for some people they apply to specific roles and they kind of like just they have a job or something like that, But for most software developers, what they're doing is that they are looking for another role. They want to do something else, and it's not uncommon for software developers to have multiple things going on in the pipeline, and that's sort of the illusion that some people have about moving around in software development, as if like, yeah, you can just quit on the day and start in the next company. Yeah, sure, you can do that if you are intending to be a consultant with no say in what company you work for. But on average, you will have a few leads, like you will apply to maybe a few roles, and then you have a few callbacks, and then you start the recruitment process on maybe a few cases at the same time, or like a few companies, and then they're going to come with an offer. And one process, like you might have a few companies, one you might like more than the others, and if you're lucky, they will get back to you with an offer in about the same time as the others. But now you have this other issue, which is that, so now you have an offer from a few companies, so like you have one offer from one company, but maybe that's not your first choice, and then the others are dragging their feet. So you can't keep the others on the waiting list. Like you can't keep them waiting for too long, because then they might hire somebody else. So now you're gonna have to, are you gonna go with the offer that you got, or are you gonna wait it out and hope that you get the job in the place that you wanted to work? Because at the end of the day, you have to remember that, well, you're doing this for money, and so both companies are gonna offer you money. It's always a way off between these sorts of things. That's usually how it goes when you're applying to roles. When it comes to being headhunted, that's a whole different story, because then usually you have software developers who are already happily employed at some place. These guys and girls are usually very selective. They will not move, and usually it is for a good reason, because it's really down to that, when you're headhunting people, you're sort of still, and that's the norm actually. A lot of recruiters are, connecting with people who are already working in IT, because they simply cannot find somebody who is not employed. I think the unemployment rate of software developers is less than 2% globally. That's insane, by the by, if you didn't know that. And the way it goes is that they try to offer you a chance to be recruited to their company, because you're still going to have to go through the same process as if you had applied. And as you can imagine, if you are already working in a company where you're sort of happy, why would you go through the code test, the interview, and so forth for just an arbitrary company that does something? That's the biggest mistake a lot of companies do. If you are headhunting somebody, you cannot treat them as if they applied to the role. It's a whole different situation, but most recruiters are not good enough, or they don't seem to not understand that part. So when you're when you're headhunting, you can expect that you're going to have to step it up as a company. If you want specific talents, you're going to have to know how to market yourself, how to brand the company, and it's much more like a how do I put this? It's more like a customer relationship type of deal, right? Where these big companies, they approach other companies and they might have several lunches together, and they do all of this pre-work in order to get a sale. It's in a similar sense the way it works for the really good software developers who you're trying to snipe from other companies, because it's, as I said, they have no motivation to go to your arbitrary company unless you are a well-branded sort of company. I mean, this is the sort of stuff that Google and Facebook and these big companies usually have invested in. They have a company brand where it's feasible for them to headhunt a person from a minor company or somewhere else by just throwing their name into the mix, because it's such a respected name. That's not always good enough, of course, but in some cases it is. And it's the same deal for practically every company. You're going to have to give people a lot of incentive to basically go do a bunch of work for you to prove that they should be hired at your company when they already have work that they're sort of happy with. So what I want you to take away from this is that, no, I would say that on average, being selective with IT companies, it's not that common. I would say it's actually rare that I talk to a software developer who really talks about specific requirements and being they're into they tell me what they're looking for in the company and so forth. It's not that common that a software developer turns down an offer or something like that if it's not for some other company or things like that. Like usually software developers are just people looking for a job in a similar sense to anybody, and for most people the company they work for is not as important as like how much am I going to get paid, do I get to do something interesting, things like that. The company itself doesn't matter usually for a lot of people, unless the brand is really, really high value or something like that, or they're doing something very specific. For juniors, it's usually the case that they will take anything that you give them, because they're desperate to get into the club, which is completely understandable, I think. Mid-levels are usually more concerned with, because they usually have a few options and they're trying to just figure out, okay, which one. Like I applied to 3 or 4 or whatever like companies, and I got a call back, and now I have to play the I don't know what game. Like you have to decide the first callback, like the first offer, going to be the one you go with, or there's someone else in the mix that you're more interested in, and then you have to see if like you can time it correctly, because sometimes, guys, when you go on the job hunt, you're looking for a job at the time where the most interesting companies for you, they might not be hiring, but you still need to make a living, right? So you can only look at what's on the table at that time and hope that in the future you can apply for a role in a specific company, right? So it's complicated to say that people are selective, because at the end of the day we're just trying to make ends meet, right? And then the only people that I know that are usually very selective with the company that they join are the people who are getting headhunted, like the best of the best, or the people who are like who have connections and stuff like that. They usually don't abandon something for something else unless you give them a really strong reason to. Have a great day.